Thank you so much for joining us tonight to learn more about your soon-to-be middle schooler and registration for their elective class for the 2023-24 school year. So in today's session, we're going to talk all things registration and some extra doses of middle school fun. Leading you in this journey is myself. I'm Amanda Vanderveen, one of the school counselors, your school counselor for your student if your student's last name begins with the letters A through G. And here with me, I have my counterpart.
Hello, I'm Andrew Fredericks. I'm one of the other school counselors. And if your last names start with the letters H through O, then I will be your student's school counselor next year. We also have our third counterpart, Aubrey McMorris. She is the counselor for students with the last names P through Z. And lastly, we also have an amazing student support specialist. Her name is Amelia Missioni, and she meets with students who need a little bit extra support throughout the school year.
And here on this screen, you can see we're led by our dynamic duo, our principal, Mr. Joe Vidal, and our amazing assistant principal, Miss Daphne Hammer, who you'll soon know to love and enjoy. We will have some time at the end to answer questions, but if a question pops up, feel free to put it in the chat, and then we can just kind of refer to that chat at the end to make sure as questions come up, we got you. So let's go ahead and jump in.
So tonight, what we're going to cover are a few things. We're going to go over a day in the life here at Thurston. We're going to go over the different classes that your students will take, both their academic classes and then the electives, how to register for those electives this week on Aries, and then some things to look forward to over the summer and at the start of the school year. So a day in the life at Thurston. These are our 3 bell schedules. They look really overwhelming, and honestly, they feel overwhelming at first, and that's okay. But the students quickly adjust to them. So we have our Monday schedule, which is all classes. So students would attend 1 through 6. If they have a 0 period, they would attend 0. And then Tuesdays through Fridays, we have our block schedule. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, students would attend 1st period, 3rd period, and 5th period. And then on Wednesdays and Fridays, they would attend the opposite, so 2nd, 4th, and 6th. The Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have an additional 30-minute block of time after lunch. So on Tuesdays, it's advisement, and on Wednesdays and Thursdays, it's tutorial. We're going to go over those a little bit more in depth in following slide, but just know that those come up on those 3 days. On Friday, we have our late start. So students would come a little bit later. They start at 9:10 instead of 8:40. There is no advisement or tutorial, but that extra hour in the morning gives teachers and staff time to collaborate in PLC meetings and do planning and prep. The great thing about Thurston is every morning we do announcements, and in the announcements, either Mr. Vidal or Mrs. Hammer will go over what the schedule is that day, so students hear it. So they'll say, today the schedule is periods 1, 3, tutorial period 4, and 5th period. At the start of the school year, for the first couple of weeks, we are out there at break and lunch, helping students find what classes they need to go to, reminding them oh, it's 5th period after this, or you're going to this tutorial. So at the start, it feels a little overwhelming at times, but there's tons of support to go over the schedule. These are our core classes that every single student will take. So there's language arts or English, math, social studies, science, and PE. So all 6th graders take these courses. in addition to their elective. The elective options are either the exploratory pathway, that's what most students take, the foreign language pathway, which is Mandarin and French, or our year-long classes, which are band, strings, or jazz. And we're going to dive into these different electives as well in the following slides. I will say the one big change about middle school that I think everyone thinks of when they think of a change is having multiple classes, and along with the schedule that can feel overwhelming. But we meet with the students for one-on-one conferences, and we did our sixth grade one-on-one conferences back in, I think, October. And that was one of the big feedbacks I think we all got, was the sixth graders saying, at first I was really worried about having multiple classes. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to find where my classes were. I would get lost on campus. But they all say that ends up being their favorite thing about middle school, is that they get to kind of transition through the day and they're not just sitting in one class. And that's really developmentally appropriate. So at first it's scary, but the challenge ends up being kind of like a blessing.
All right, before we jump into some more of those classes and a little bit more info on electives, we wanted to speak a little bit more about advisement and tutorial, which Mr. Fredericks was talking about. Remember, this is the class right after lunch on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So they have a little 30-minute chunk right after lunch to attend to these. So advisement happens one time a week. This is kind of almost like a homeroom type class. It's a real small class sizes. I think the goal is to kind of create this team. Helps you kind of build a relationship with a teacher, with one of the students' teachers. And this is kind of that time where we plug in a lot of those campus-wide announcements. We plug in some of the just general information, rather than taking away from some students, like the morning announcements or the class time. This allows us to kind of do a lot of that work in that 30 minutes. This is also where we have our cups, are basically our team. Advisement team gets to challenge other advisement teams. We've had like tug of war, dodgeball, name that tune, which was the recent one, which was a blast. But we have a lot of these little competitions against other advisements, which kind of, again, creates a lot of that homeroom kind of team feel with students and their advisement class. So that happens just on Tuesdays after lunch. Wednesdays and Thursdays, that's that tutorial period that Mr. Fredericks was talking about. And this, it rotates through periods 1 through 6. So let's say the first week, on Wednesday, they'd go to period 1 tutorial, on Thursday, period 2. And then the following week would be 3 and 4, and then periods 5 and 6, and then it starts over. This is such a great little 30-minute chunk to allow students the opportunity to kind of meet with their normal period class to get a little extra scoop of information. But it's also used for like enrichment purposes too. We've been having a lot of career talks in the library where we have different people from all types of careers come in and talk about their journey, how they got there, which has been a wonderful asset to this year. But teachers also will use this to kind of request students. So if they know they need to see a student to follow up on maybe a test that needs to be finished or assignment needs to be finished, teachers can also request students to come, even if it's not their tutorial day. And students get that option too. So there's a lot of flexibility built within this tutorial schedule. And it's just really helpful to kind of have that little extra layer of support to kind of tie up loose ends and make sure students have the opportunity to get that additional support and answer those questions as they come up. So wonderful to have that. Hopefully that helps explain it a little bit more. The next thing we wanted to show you is just a copy of what our schedule looks like. This will pretty much be what you see when you come on our Wave Rider Day, late summer, kind of before our school year starts. And notice on this schedule, that first column of periods, and then, that middle column where it says course title, teacher, and room number. Those are going to be the main sections to zone in on. Also notice that there's a 0 period in here. This 0 period is that optional class. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but this allows students to take a second elective. So some students are really on the fence. They can't decide on just one. They have the ability to add in a 0 period class to fit in that second elective. The 0 period class itself usually is like a PE, language arts, social studies. It's rarely the actual elective, but having that math class, let's say it's 0 period, opens a spot during the school day to fit in that second elective. And that 0 period, I really want you to consider, is your kiddo a morning person? If your kiddo likes to sleep, has busy sports schedule, 0 period may not be for everyone. But if your student is really fired up and is so excited about these 2 electives they can't decide, then it is awesome to have that option. And 0 period is Monday through Thursday. So it's not on Friday, and it starts at 7:35 and ends at 8:35. So it's 1 hour Monday through Thursday. So hope that helps. Also, if you look at the very bottom of the schedule, you'll see advise. Advise is that advisement class. So that's where you see that advisement class that takes place on Tuesdays. So it tells them who that teacher is and that class. And that's what that means when you see that schedule. Hopefully you all remember in August. All right, so now to the good stuff. Elective choices. So the main part of registration is choosing the elective class that your student wants to take when they're at Thurston. So here are our options. We have the elective wheels, and we call them wheels because they are rotations. They kind of rotate and sample through the different classes. So the 2 wheels we have that rotate through different classes is we have the exploratory wheel and we have foreign language wheel. And then we also have year-long classes. So this would be a class that the student is in for the entire year. And that is our band class, our jazz, which usually runs as a 0 period, and our strings class. So we're going to give you information on what is involved in each of these wheels and a little bit information on the band and strings, but those are the 3 pretty much choices that we're wanting to know so we can set them up for their schedule for next year.
Yeah, so this first one is our exploratory wheel. This is really what I would say the majority of 6th graders end up taking, mainly because it gives them exposure to the most electives. So they would take all 4 of these within their 6th grade year. It rotates on a 10-week basis. So a student might start with art, and then after 10 weeks move into computers. Then after the next 10 weeks, musical theater and STEAM. We have Mrs. Layton, who teaches art. And in that class, they, for all these classes, they get to kind of get a taste of what they're going to do in these electives if they decide to take them the following years in 7th and 8th grade when they become semester long. So they do more of like the basics and just like get an understanding of what the class entails. So for art, they're going to be doing sketching and painting, and they do like a collage project. In computers, they do different, they work with different computer programs and do a little bit of coding. Musical theater is really fun. This year they did Frozen as their production, and at the end of the semester, the kids put on a performance a couple nights of the week, and they're going to do that this semester as well. I think the performance that they do changes every year, but this year they're doing Frozen. In that class, one big thing that comes up for students is being worried about like having to have an acting position and like having that stage fright piece, but they don't have to do an acting position. There's different roles that they can take on in musical theater that where they're doing like stage production. So they're not necessarily like performing in front of other people. Lastly, we have STEAM, which Mrs. Kim teaches. This is our like science and like engineering class. So the kids will build things and put together different projects. For our foreign language wheel, we have two classes, the French and Mandarin. So instead of the classes being a 10-week rotation, these are both semester long. So if a student started with French, they would take that up until winter break. And then when they came back from winter break, they would start Mandarin and vice versa. This is a really good class or a good option for students who don't know what language they might want to do later on, and they want to get an idea of both French and Mandarin and see if they like either, because they will have the option as seventh graders to take it as a year-long course. And if they did that, then they would generally take it again, the second part of it as an eighth grader. So if a student takes takes a foreign language wheel as a sixth grader, it doesn't mean they have to do those languages as a seventh and eighth grader. And if they don't take this as a sixth grader, it does not mean that they can't end up doing French or Mandarin as a seventh and eighth grader. It's just a good way for them to get exposure to those languages because they get exposure to Spanish in elementary school, but they're not getting exposure to these two. So if your student is thinking of doing a language as a seventh and eighth grader, and they're not sure, then this would be a good option for them. And then we have our year-long courses. So we have band, strings, and then also jazz, which Mrs. Vanderveen mentioned, and that one is usually 0 period. These classes are all taught by Mr. Wade, and he really has put together an amazing music program here. The students put on different performances throughout the year, both within the school and the district, and then within the community. So last week, yes, we went to the elementary schools and did a presentation. It's basically the same presentation, and Mr. Wade came with us and brought students from both of these classes, and they did a performance there to kind of showcase what the program's all about. But they also do performances out in the community. So hospitality night, they perform there and kind of showcase what they're learning. It's really cool.
Okay, so one new feature we added this school year, which has been a hit, is middle school sports. It's an intramural type sport, so we get to play against other Orange County middle schools. So it's been a lot of fun. The sports that are offered are soccer, basketball, volleyball, track, and cross country. So those are our 5 sports that we run. They have boys teams, girls teams, except for when it comes to cross country and track. There's a 6th, 7th team and an 8th grade team. And there are tryouts. And it is been an amazing addition. It's brought a lot of students together, kind of created more of that Thurston Go Wave Riders feel. Students that end up making the team during their season, they'll jump on buses and head to the different schools. I think the schools are in, for the most part, kind of Newport, Corona Del Mar, those areas. We're in a league with them. So it's been a lot of fun. As you can see in these pictures, we have awesome uniforms. We kind of highlight them on their morning announcements, and it's been a really good journey so far. So very excited to share this with you guys and get your kiddos excited about the potential of participating in a middle school sport next year as well.
Oops, sorry, frozen.
So let's talk about what is next. Tomorrow morning, you will be receiving a Parent Square email from our fearless leader, Mr. Vidal. He'll be providing a lot of the basic instructions. The presentation that we're sharing today will be on the LinkedIn, along with another link that you kind of see highlighted below. This is a Wakelet, and it provides step-by-step directions with how to register for the elective class in Aries. It's amazing because it includes pictures. So it's really, really easy to navigate through. Just kind of take your time with your future sixth grader and just go through and read the directions, look at the pictures, and follow in suit in your own Aries or your child's Aries. One thing that did come up is Aries had everyone redo their password. So that did come up when we had our own students register on Aries. So you may need to have your student enter through Beachport, because the password automatically gets saved and opens up for them there, or they can click the forgot password button and reset it. So that will come to you tomorrow morning, and you'll have the whole week. So no rush, no pressure. You have the whole week to kind of disseminate through the material, have those great conversations, amazing conversations. You'll have us accessible via email to kind of bounce questions off of. So yeah, happy elective choosing, and look for that in your inbox starting tomorrow, and definitely don't hesitate to share questions that come up as you go through that process. We also have Wayrider Day. Nope, not coming up. Not until mid-August. So by then you'll celebrate ending 5th grade and hopefully go on a nice little trip with your family, and then will come Wayrider Day. August 15th this year on a Tuesday, so mark your calendars. And this is a day where students, our 6th graders, get to come on campus. They'll pick up their schedule, get their PE clothes, and their new Chromebook issued to them for the middle school. If they have any textbooks, they'll pick them up that day too. They'll get their ID photo and take their yearbook pictures, so make sure they're looking sharp. What else? Oh, bring a bag, and sometimes you end up having a few things to carry. We'll have PAL and ASB leadership students there for campus tours. So as you see the students there, they'll be encouraging you to walk around with them and show them around their classes. Take them up on that. They love it. Ask away on questions. They're already a current student there, so they've got all the answers, and you're in good hands. It's a really fun day. So we're looking forward to seeing you on Wayrider Day. So mark your calendars.
Something else to mark in your calendars is our 6th grade welcome day. So this is a few days after Wayrider Day. It's on August 18th, that Friday. This is different than registration in that it is solely for 6th graders. So this is our day before school starts for the 6th graders to come on campus and just kind of like get their feet wet a little bit, meet other students, and feel a little bit more comfortable. So we start in the gym and do a welcome for everyone. And then the students break up into smaller groups that are facilitated by us as counselors, and then our amazing leadership students, so our PAL and ASB students. They do different like icebreaker and get to know you activities. They go on campus tours. So this would be a good day to send your student with their schedule so that they can kind of get a sense of where their classes are. I would also recommend that they wear sunscreen because we're outside for a bit of it, and then also have maybe a water bottle. Lunch is provided. We have really good food trucks that come. And then at the end, they have time to just hang out and get to know each other and play some games. So this is a really, really fun day. It's just for the 6th graders. And yeah, we highly recommend. For social media, we have our handles on the right-hand side here. So TMS Wayriders. and then also the district handle Laguna Beach USD. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. This is just a good place to go to see kind of things that are coming up, and then things that have been going on campus or inside the classrooms. I would actually recommend maybe after this going on the school's Instagram and just kind of get a sense of what has gone on this school year so far. The principal is really good about posting different things, different events, whether it's lessons in the classroom or it's lunchtime activities or things going on outside of the classroom. And finally, we have our counseling contacts. So we have Mrs. Vanderbean's email, my email, and then Mrs. McMorris. So as you're going through the registration process, if you have questions that come up or you have questions about next school year, feel free to just shoot us an email and we'll get back to you and help out with whatever we can. And that is the end of our presentation. We're going to open it up for questions. It looks like we have some in the chat. So let me see if I can open. Oh, here we go.
I've answered a few too, if you want me to jump in.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Okay.
So what band?
Some asked if is leadership its own elective. This coming year, our leadership spots became full. So leadership is open once students start 7th grade. Can students just take French, not Mandarin? That starts in 7th grade. So students have the ability to start their foreign language pathway as a 7th grader or wait until high school. So if they start in 7th grade, they're taking first semester of that high school course. They're taking that all of 7th grade year. So the first semester of the course over 7th grade year gives them a long, continuous, in-depth exposure. And then 8th grade year, they take the second semester of that high school level 1 class. And then that allows them to jump in as a 9th grader into level 2. So it would be like French 2 or Spanish 2 or Mandarin 2. About half of our student body decide to wait until they're in high school to start their foreign language. So that's an option too. So don't feel like you have to start, but for those who have kiddos that are really excited to start another language and learn, 7th grade would be their first year to jump in. 6th grade just gives them, again, the samplings of French and Mandarin, mainly because they have had a lot of Spanish exposure already. There will still be a little sampling of Spanish included as well, but a lot more emphasis on the French and Mandarin language. And mainly that class is for those who are really trying to decide, like they're undecided whether they want to do Spanish, French, or Mandarin. They don't know which one. So that class will help them. And then someone asked, is Spanish available for 6th graders? They get a little week or two sampling in 6th grade, but really they would wait until 7th if they wanted to jump into the language pathway. Another question, will you be adding any additional sports in the coming years, like intramural, any additional intramural sports? And the answer to that is because we're a part of a larger league that's been running for a few years, those are the sports that they're currently offering. So we haven't been made aware of them adding any additional sports yet, but we'll be sure to communicate that with our families if they continue to open up additional sports. You seen any over there on your end, Mr. Frederick?
I see some live ones that we can answer. So what band instruments are there? Mr. Wade has, I think, a full set of instruments. Most students do either saxophone, French horn, the flute, tuba, trumpet. I think it's called the cornet, I believe is what it's called. He also has like cymbals and drums, but students don't take those on individually. I think that some will like rotate between them, but usually they have their own instrument that would be like a saxophone or a tuba or a trumpet.
That's really impressive. Yeah, a lot of times the instruments students are taking in elementary school They're offered also at the middle school, but we also, we kind of separate them into the string. So if the instrument has a string versus not having a string. But you knew a lot of those instruments, Mr. Fredericks. I'm really impressed.
I sat in the class a couple times. Are electives chosen individually, or students just need to choose a wheel? So you guys would decide as a family what elective option you would like, and you would decide either one of the wheels, so either the elective pathway wheel, where they're going to do those 4 different electives, so art, STEAM, multimedia, and musical theater, or they could do the foreign language wheel, where they would do Mandarin and French. Or if you wanted to do a year-long elective and do band, strings, or jazz, you could do that as well. But those you would decide, and that's what you're going to sign up for this week on Aries. Do we have times for Wave Rider Day and Welcome Day? We are already signed up for summer camp. I believe we might have times. I mean, or Mrs. Vanderveen, do you see any on your calendar?
I'll jump in for that one. Traditionally for Wave Rider Day, we've allowed students to, or families to sign up for a time for Wave Rider Day. It generally runs from like 8:30 a.m. till maybe 1 p.m. And then Welcome Day this past year was about like 10:30 to maybe 12:30. Obviously it's pending changing each year. The times usually get nailed down closer to the end of the school year. So definitely check back, but hopefully that helps.
Okay. If our student decides to play a sport, does that count as PE or an elective? So if they do one of the intramural sports, that would be outside of their classes. It wouldn't be like part of their actual schedule. So it wouldn't count as towards PE or as their elective. That would be like an extracurricular that they're participating in. Will Spanish still be part of the curriculum in middle school? So yes, if they choose to, as a 7th or 8th grader, they can definitely take Spanish. And like Mrs. Vanderveen mentioned, they do cover it for a few weeks in the foreign language wheel, but it's not one of the options in the foreign language wheel for 6th graders. It would be an option as a 7th and 8th grade elective. Well, I know Spanish, they studied it for years at elementary school and for a year break. So for Spanish, the idea was regarding the foreign language wheel, because they had that experience in Spanish, they wanted to give the kids the option to get exposure to different languages, because they are going to make that choice as 7th graders if they want to go into any of the 3 languages. So since they don't get the exposure in elementary school, they wanted to provide that opportunity since they're already exposed to Spanish in elementary school.
And I can jump in and just add to that. Historically, we've always started our language pathways in 7th grade. So 6th grade has always been kind of an off year. We've always had the foreign language wheel. But normally it was more of a trimester model where it was 3 months of Spanish, 3 months of French, 3 months of Mandarin. But the Spanish was deducted because a lot of students came in with a lot of that knowledge. So yeah, those of you who are in Spanish and have their kiddos in it and loving it, just try to, keep that exposure on the end, because it does start, the language pathway does start in 7th grade.
So if I pick band, is that 0 period? No, usually band is built into the day. So this year, I think it's 2nd period for one of them, and then the 1st period is the other time it's offered. The 0 period option for music would be jazz band. At least this year, that was offered only 0 period. So if we continue that next year, then it would probably be jazz band again. We should be working as a district to allow foreign language earlier. Disappointing that they will effectively miss taking Spanish for an entire year when they're coming out of Spanish at elementary school. This is a missed opportunity for languages, and requiring them to mix French Mandarin is going to be a turnoff for some kids because they're vastly different, and some kids already know by that age which language they might want to pursue. Right.
I can jump
That
into
is-
that one, Mr. Fredericks. We have this really great tool that we sometimes provide for students to just give them a little extra enrichment and exposure. We have one of the classes is Spanish, and that's Apex. So Apex is a virtual class that students can take. So if you're in that boat and you want that your child to have that continued access to Spanish, check in with us, and we do have an Apex class that a student can take in Spanish to kind of continue that exposure and that dose. But thank you. Next question is, what is dress code in middle school? Great question. We're currently working on a team for dress code to kind of really fine tune it. But generally, it's just making sure that you're dressing respectfully, responsibly. I know that we have a planner that kind of goes into a little bit more details, but I'd say, with keeping in mind dressing respectfully and kind of with a school attire consistent to what they're used to in elementary school. There is definitely a little bit more flexibility that students have access to in the middle school. But stay tuned, because we're doing a panel with parents and students and teachers. So we're revising that as we speak. How are math class levels determined for each child? Math classes really go into effect grade level. So we have a math 6th, a math 7th, and a math 8th. I'm guessing that this may be referring to accelerated versions. In 5th grade, students do take a couple of benchmark type math tests that just check for some students that have just kind of naturally accelerated on their own, just through exposure and just kind of the natural acceleration type rate. So if your child kind of fits into that category, a lot of times we reach out and recommend the accelerated class. But ultimately, we really just want to make sure students are exposed to math slowly and build that really, really strong foundational level, because the math that we cover in these middle school years are so vital and important as they build onto them in high school. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of very specific type questions. So I want to encourage, if you have questions related to your individual child, to please make sure to reach out to us. Let me see if I can see any that
are general.
Yeah, more general. Team
So
sports
after
practices
school
are usually right after school. And go ahead.
After school programs, we have our homework club and our after school tutoring that's offered in the library from 3:05 to 4, and it's offered Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The exploratory wheel generally does not fill up, so students could take that. The pathway, the elected pathways first come, first serve. Does signing up sooner benefit? No. So just sign up this week, and neither one, to my knowledge, has ever filled up. Our 6th grade letters.
I see one. So someone's talking about not being able to choose actual individual electives, but being in a wheel for the exploratory wheel. For 6th grade, that's what we do. We give them small 10-week samplings of each of our elective pathway classes. So they'll get the sampling of art, STEAM, musical theater, and multimedia. And then that allows them then in 7th grade to narrow in on their top 2. It's really neat to see when students are a part of the wheel and they try maybe some of the classes that they wouldn't normally pick. It really is neat to see that sometimes that ends up being like they love it. That's like they find they have strengths and skills that they never knew they had. So, you know, the wheel, that's pretty much the method behind the madness when it comes to the wheel, is really giving them the opportunity to sample and try and kind of learn skills and identify strengths that they may not have had before, but and to really allow them as they move into 7th and 8th grade, when they become a semester long class, you know, make sure that they've kind of dabbled in them. And then in high school, they become year-long classes, electives.
For Welcome Day, yes, that is just for students. Parents this past August came, they hung out for the first 10 minutes while students got checked in, but left after that. What happens if you miss Wave Rider Day?
Yeah, what happens if you miss Wave Rider or Welcome Day? Wave Rider Day, just reach out to the school closer to the start of the next school year, and we'll make sure that you get the stuff that you need prior to school starting. A lot of times students can just come in before school starts and pick up their schedule and anything they need to. So just call our front office closer to the start of the school, and we can we'll definitely be able to help you out with Welcome Day. If you're in the boat where you already do have plans and you may miss the 6th grade Welcome Day, that's definitely okay. There's a lot of touch points that the 6th graders have, a lot of support that the 6th graders have. This is just kind of a fun way to get them on campus and get them engaged and getting them to meet the students from the other elementary school.
How do they join the virtual Spanish class? So that's something that at the start of the year, connect with us, and we will connect with Mrs. Hammer, and we'll get you signed up for the Apex program.
How long are lunch breaks and recess? Let me look at our bell schedule. Lunch is about 35 minutes, and our breaks are generally about 20 minutes. Really thoughtfully placed. So it's like period 1, 2, break, period 3, 4, lunch, period 5, 6, home. And then on odd days, it's, big block, like period 1 block, break, period 3 block, lunch, period 5 block, home. So it works out well. We have reached the end of our questions. So if you're still here and you're still hanging in there, feel free to let us know if an additional question pops up.
Yes. Oh, let me move this. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us via email anytime this week or just in the future if anything comes up, and we can answer your questions.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys spending your Monday evening with us virtually, and looking forward to welcoming your future Wave Rider, and enjoy the festivities of finishing off elementary school. So take care, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good night.